The big ballroom was noisy with all the important people in London talking. Fancy lights made the room glow, shining on the silverware and the guests' sparkly jewellery. The air smelled like expensive perfume and maybe a little bit of jealousy. Tonight, the special guest was Lord Arthur Scoresby. He was super famous for being a great army guy, and everyone thought he was amazing. The fancy dinner was a big celebration of how important he had become. Lord Scoresby, looking sharp in his bright red uniform, stood in the middle of it all. His medals shone brightly. He looked important and his face was polite as people kept telling him how great he was. But watching from the side was an old church guy with a secret smile. He knew the Arthur Scoresby, a silly guy who just got really, really lucky. "See that man, young Thomas?" the old church guy whispered, barely heard over the noise. He nudged the young man next to him, his eyes still on the famous general. "They call him a genius, a super smart army guy." Thomas, a young guy who didn't know much, looked at the church guy, then at the famous Lord Scoresby. He didn't understand. "But sir," he stammered, "Lord Scoresby is a legend. He won so many battles." The old man chuckled, a dry, crinkly sound. "Victories?" he repeated. "Let me tell you, young man, about the Arthur Scoresby." And he started his story. A very different story from the happy celebration happening around them. He was, to put it nicely, a terrible student, the church guy continued, remembering the past. His brain wasn't made for school. He remembered young Arthur trying hard to learn, struggling with easy things that other kids learned quickly. He tried, but it didn't work. He just wasn't smart. Even though he was bad at school, Arthur really to be good, and the church guy felt bad for him. Arthur was a nice guy, not mean or tricky at all. He just wasn't very bright. So the old church guy tried to help Arthur, to teach him. He spent hours and hours helping him with his lessons, explaining things over and over. The Crimean War started suddenly like a big fire. Young men wanting to be heroes joined the army. Arthur, excited like everyone else, said he wanted to join too, and the church guy was shocked. "You in the army?" he said, imagining clumsy Arthur fighting and getting hurt. "Arthur, you don't even know how to hold a gun." But Arthur, his eyes shining with excitement, really wanted to go. He thought the army was his chance to show everyone he was good at something. The church guy felt sorry for him. "Okay, Arthur," he sighed. "If you're going, I'll go with you and help you." And so, the church guy made a big decision that changed everything. He joined the army with his not-so-smart student. The Crimean War was a nasty business full of mud, blood and explosions. Surprisingly, Arthur seemed to do okay. He was lucky and always seemed to escape danger. Nobody knew it, but the church guy was secretly helping Arthur stay alive. He changed wrong orders, moved Arthur to safer places, and even once pushed him into a ditch right before a bomb exploded where Arthur had been standing. Arthur didn't know about any of this. He thought he was just super lucky, and he got more and more confident. He even started thinking his mistakes were brilliant plans, which confused the other soldiers. News of Arthur's strange but successful ways got to the important army bosses. They were happy to say Arthur's wins were because of his brave and different plans. Arthur became more and more important in the army really fast. Every mistake, every lucky escape made him seem even more like a genius. Everyone thought he was amazing. The church guy, watching Arthur's unbelievable success, kept helping him secretly. He became Arthur's close friend and advisor, always making sure Arthur's mistakes didn't get him killed. "Arthur, my boy," he would say, stopping Arthur from making bad choices, "don't you think it's better to—" And then he would suggest the opposite of Arthur's bad idea. Arthur, thinking the church guy's ideas were his own, would say, "Great idea, I knew that all along." The biggest battle of Arthur's career, the one that made him super famous, happened on a foggy morning. The enemy army was much bigger and stronger, ready to attack the tired British soldiers. Arthur, super confident because he'd been so lucky before, wasn't worried. He looked at the battlefield like he was thinking hard, but really he had no idea what to do. The church guy saw what the enemy was doing and got scared. He knew Arthur was about to make a terrible mistake. "Arthur," he whispered urgently, "we need to move our soldiers. The enemy is—" But Arthur, thinking he was a genius, ignored him. "Nonsense, old friend," he said confidently. "This is a great plan. The enemy will be surprised." Arthur, ignoring the church guy's warnings, told the soldiers to attack. The soldiers, believing in their general, marched into the fog. The church guy watched in horror as Arthur led them into a trap. But then something amazing happened. The fog that hid the enemy also hid Arthur's mistake. The enemy commander was so surprised to see British soldiers suddenly appear that he panicked. Thinking they were trapped, the enemy soldiers ran away. Arthur, standing in the middle of all the confusion, was shocked. He had won by accident. News of the victory made Arthur the most famous army guy of his time. He went back to London a hero, and everyone loved him. The church guy just shook his head. He knew the truth. Arthur wasn't smart or a great general. He was just lucky. As the years went by and Arthur's legend grew, the church guy thought about how strange luck can be. He decided that sometimes the best thing to be is lucky. Luck can make even the silliest person super successful. And that's the story of Lord Arthur Scoresby, the lucky fool. A reminder that sometimes good things happen to people who don't deserve them.